Carl Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This single statement echoes the essence of individuation, the evolving process of aligning your conscious and unconscious selves so that you can stand as a complete, authentic human being. But what happens when the drive to become your authentic self crosses paths with your longing for closeness with others? Is it possible that the very force that helps you achieve psychological wholeness might also create walls in your relationships? That's exactly what we're exploring today. The hidden ways in which your pursuit of individuation might be sabotaging the intimacy you crave. We'll journey through some of Carl Jung's most transformative principles, uncover illuminating real-world examples, and piece together practical steps you can take to reconcile your need for growth with your desire for emotional connection. Before we dive deeper, make sure you subscribe if you're looking to illuminate your inner world with more Jungian insights, relationship wisdom, and everything that empowers you to live your fullest life. After all, exploring our psyche can be an intricate, sometimes mystical voyage. We're about to shine a light into those hidden chambers of the heart and mind where your need for self-development and closeness with loved ones might be at odds. Think of it like searching for buried treasure. We're about to go digging for jewels of self-knowledge, only to realize those jewels might influence how we bond with the people closest to us. Imagine you're in a boat out on a vast ocean. You long to explore new waters, uncover uncharted territories, and relish the independence of steering your own course. Yet you also yearn for the warmth of a companion, someone who can share in the wonder of each sunrise. Can you keep your sense of direction and also let another person aboard without conflict? Or does letting someone on your vessel threaten your course, your identity, your progress towards self-realization? If you've ever felt like you're torn between forging your unique path and maintaining real intimacy, you're not alone. This dilemma is more common than you might think. So let's uncover the subtle reasons why a healthy drive toward your authentic self can sometimes create invisible barriers to love. By the end of this exploration, you might find that you don't need to choose between growth and intimacy, but rather learn how they can feed and support one another. If your boat's about to sail, let's make sure it has room for deeper connections, not just open seas. Let's begin by examining what individuation really means and how it can feel like a double-edged sword when it comes to relationships. Keep watching. By the end, you may have a whole new perspective on how your quest for self-discovery and your longing for deep partnership can peacefully coexist. And if at any point in this journey you're thinking, "Wow, that's me," or "I never realized this," don't hesitate to tap the like button and share your reflections. We grow best when we grow together. Picture a house that symbolizes your psyche. In Jung's theory, individuation is like the process of renovating every room in that house so it truly reflects who you are. You can't just paint the living room and call it done. You have to check the attic for old clutter, the basement for potential leaks, and the hidden rooms that contain dusty boxes of forgotten memories and even older emotions. Individuation is thorough. It asks you to explore your conscious thoughts and your unconscious motivations, to look at your beliefs, behaviors, the shadow you tend to hide, and the ideals you aspire to become. On one hand, this journey can feel exhilarating. You're peeling back layers of who you thought you were to finally uncover a deeper, more genuine sense of self. Yet, on the other hand, it can lead to periods of intense introspection where you might feel the urge to isolate or detach from others, afraid their influence will disrupt your self-inquiry. Now, consider how this plays out in real life. One example is a woman in her early 30s, let's call her Marie, who after years of following social norms realized she was living out someone else's script. She dove into Jung's writings and began therapy to better understand her internal dialogues. She found that, as she discovered new aspects of her identity, She became less interested in social gatherings or shared experiences with her partner, worried that she would lose sight of these emerging parts of herself if she returned to the old, familiar routines. Her journey toward self-actualization became a fortress, albeit unintentionally, keeping loved ones at a distance. We can see a similar dynamic with a man in his late 20s, named James, who had a history of codependent relationships. He learned about individuation and began setting boundaries. Suddenly, he felt liberated, more in control of his destiny. But as he embraced this newfound personal autonomy, he started to view every request for closeness or compromise as a threat. He found himself distrusting emotional intimacy, for fear it might rob him of the progress he'd achieved in becoming an independent, authentic individual. In both scenarios, the individuals are on a healthy quest for meaning, identity, and personal truth, but they inadvertently allowed the pursuit of individuation to overshadow the value of shared experiences and emotional vulnerability. Their metaphorical houses underwent renovation, but they hung "Do Not Disturb" signs on the doors, unaware that welcoming others inside for a heartfelt conversation might actually accelerate, rather than derail, their growth. This is where Jung's concept of the shadow becomes relevant. As we peel away layers of conditioning, we encounter parts of ourselves that we've denied or repressed. These can include our fears of abandonment, deep insecurities about whether we're lovable without compromise, or even hidden resentments we harbor toward those we see as limiting our freedom. These unconscious forces can turn our drive for individuation into a defensive stance, as though proclaiming, "I need to do this alone." Ironically, that stance can hide a deeper fear of intimacy, a fear that if someone truly sees us, we might lose the illusions we've formed about who we think we are. This is the subtle interplay between discovering your individuality and sharing your authentic self with another. One of the most powerful ways to understand how individuation can both nurture and sabotage intimacy is through the image of a garden. Picture yourself tending a special, sacred garden that represents your personal growth. You plant seeds of self-awareness, water them with intentional reflections, and protect them from toxic influences. Over time, vibrant flowers bloom, new insights, more robust self-esteem, and a sense of purpose. But if you put up a tall fence with barbed wire on top, fearing someone might come in and trample your newly blossomed plants, you may also block out the sunlight of companionship, the pollinating presence of others who could share their own seeds of wisdom or simply admire the beauty of your inner work. Without that external exchange, your garden might be lush, but it risks stagnation. Flowers need sunlight, and sometimes we need the reflection others offer to see ourselves more clearly. Think of a real-world scenario. Megan, in her early 40s, discovers a passion for painting while on her quest to become more aligned with her true self. She isolates in her art studio for days at a time, exploring abstract shapes and color palettes that express her deepest feelings. While it's beautiful that she's nurturing her creative spark, she starts to decline social invitations from her best friend and becomes disconnected from her spouse's emotional world. She claims she needs space to grow. Months later, she's produced a stunning portfolio but feels a strange emptiness whenever she looks at her art. She realizes she was missing out on the enlivening interplay between her newly discovered passion and the people she loves, people who could have offered support, inspiration, or even gentle challenges that might have led her paintings to a richer, more layered depth. This example highlights an aha moment. Individuation isn't about going at it alone. It's about bringing all of your parts together, inner and outer, conscious and unconscious, so you can share a more complete, more honest version of yourself with others. The garden metaphor reveals that the fences we put up to protect our budding identity might also keep away the relational nourishment we need to grow into a wiser, more empathic human being. Now, how do we address this in practice so that the journey inward doesn't isolate us from those around us? One strategy is to schedule periodic check-ins with the people who matter most. This means setting aside time, maybe over a weekly coffee or an evening walk, to talk openly about your discoveries, fears, and how you envision integrating your growing sense of self into the relationship. Rather than seeing this as an intrusion, view it as shining a gentle light on your blossoming psyche, allowing trusted others to bear witness. You can say something like, "I'm learning a lot about who I am, and I'd love to share that with you. I'm curious about what you notice in me as I grow and how that's affecting us." Another way is to create a journal dedicated specifically to the intersection of self-discovery and relationships. After a session of personal work, be it meditation, therapy, or creative exploration, write down any thoughts or tensions you feel about letting someone in on what you've uncovered. Identify where the resistance might be coming from. Is it a fear that they won't understand, or a fear that their presence will overshadow your autonomy? Be honest and gentle with yourself. The more you name your fears, the less they control you from the shadows. And ironically, the more you accept your vulnerability, the more prepared you become to share it in a relationship that might actually celebrate your individuality rather than suffocate it. At this midpoint, if you're finding value here, consider showing your support by liking this video. It helps us continue exploring vital topics like these, and it lets others know that Jung's wisdom is worth sharing. Your engagement also fosters a community of mindful souls, journeying through the complexities of self-discovery and interpersonal connection together. Another pillar to lean on is understanding the concept of holding tension, a hallmark of Jungian thought. Holding tension means recognizing that life is full of paradoxes, like wanting to be independent yet also wanting intimacy, and resisting the urge to eliminate one side of the conflict too quickly. Instead, you stay with that tension and allow space for a more creative solution to emerge. If you're wrestling with the worry that too much closeness might jeopardize your freedom, practice sitting with that discomfort. Notice what comes up in your body. Do you feel tightness in your chest, anxiety in your stomach? Let those feelings be, rather than running from them or blaming the other person for needing too much. Often, by holding this tension, a new insight will surface, such as, "Actually, what I fear is losing my sense of purpose, but maybe healthy intimacy can enhance it if I keep honest boundaries." To illustrate, consider Alex, a musician who thrives on solitude for his songwriting. He's dating someone who loves to collaborate, someone who wants to be part of his creative process. At first, Alex resists, worried that outside input will dilute his unique artistic voice. But he learns to hold the tension instead of outright rejecting or embracing the idea. Over time, he finds a balance. He maintains private writing sessions to develop his initial ideas, then invites his partner in to co-create harmonies and refine the final composition. The result is richer music and a deeper bond, proof that holding tension can yield innovations neither party could discover alone. Another psychological concept that supports this balancing act is the animus-anima dynamic, which essentially represents our internal masculine and feminine energies, or more broadly, the complementary aspects of our psyche that exist beyond our conscious identity. When your animus-anima is balanced and integrated, you become more comfortable with the opposite sides of yourself, such as the rational and the emotional, the independent and the dependent. This inner balance often reflects in how you relate to others. If you've integrated your own nurturing side, you're less threatened by someone else's emotional needs. If you've embraced your driven, decisive side, you don't feel as compromised when you occasionally yield to someone else's viewpoint for the sake of harmony. In essence, exploring and balancing your inner opposites can make you more adaptable in relationships without feeling like you've compromised your essence. Here's another reflection point. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I open up to closeness while focusing on my personal growth? For some, the answer might be, I'm afraid I'll get hurt. For others, it might be, I'm afraid I'll lose my freedom. Both concerns are valid, yet shining a light on them helps you see whether you're projecting old wounds or beliefs onto current relationships. Once you recognize those beliefs, you can challenge them. Perhaps the fear of getting hurt is linked to a past betrayal that you never fully processed. Perhaps the fear of losing freedom is rooted in a childhood dynamic where you had to care for everyone's needs. Identifying those roots is the first step in updating your internal narrative to something more balanced and life-affirming. An aha moment often comes when you realize that true individuation actually includes the capacity for healthy interdependence. Jung never argued that individuation meant isolation. Rather, it's about becoming so attuned to your authentic self that you can freely share it with others without losing it. Another powerful metaphor is that of a musical duet. Each instrument has its own timbre and melody, yet when they play together thoughtfully, they create harmony that neither could achieve alone. The key is maintaining your unique sound, while learning to blend with someone else's notes. A practical application here is to experiment with small acts of shared vulnerability. If you're used to doing all your self-reflection alone, try talking through a recent revelation with a close friend or partner. Notice how it feels in your body to let someone witness your new awareness. Do you feel relief, anxiety, or maybe a mix of both? Pay attention without judgment. This exercise challenges the belief that your growth must remain a hidden, solitary endeavor. Likewise, if you tend to share every single experience and rarely cultivate solitude, practice setting a boundary where you reflect alone for a brief period. Notice how that shift feels. These small experiments help you build a kind of muscle memory for balancing individuation and intimacy in larger life decisions. We've come a long way, so let's gather our insights and ensure they're practical. The bottom line is that individuation is not inherently a threat to intimacy. It can become that if we cling to a misguided belief that any shared experience will dilute our true self. In truth, relationships often act as mirrors, reflecting the parts of us we might be missing, illuminating blind spots, and even fueling further growth. The problem arises when we confuse self-possession with isolation, or when we project onto others the fear of losing ourselves, a fear that might actually live inside us due to unresolved wounds. As we bring this conversation to a close, let's recap what we've discovered. Your authentic self is like a polished gem. It shines best when it's seen in the light. Keeping it locked away out of worry that it might be scratched or overshadowed only diminishes its luster. In a parallel way, your drive for personal growth need not be a barrier to deep connection. When you commit to understanding yourself, light and shadow, independence and vulnerability, you cultivate the capacity to share from a place of genuine wholeness, which only enriches the bonds you form. If you're ready to take this further, consider these practical steps. First, establish a rhythm of self-reflection and relational check-ins. Spend time nurturing your inner world, but also share those newfound insights in an open dialogue with trusted friends, partners, or mentors. Second, practice holding tension. When you notice conflicting desires, like the need for solitude and the desire for closeness, resist forcing a quick solution. Let yourself experience the unease, and watch for a creative resolution that respects both needs. Third, actively explore your animus anima or complementary inner energies, noticing when you might be over-identifying with one aspect of yourself and underutilizing another. Balancing these internal dynamics often frees you from rigid all-or-nothing thinking in your relationships. Above all, approach this journey with curiosity and compassion. If you find that your quest for authenticity sometimes sparks conflict with people you love, See it as an invitation to learn more about yourself, your relational patterns, and the deeper yearnings within you. You might ask, have I been using individuation as a shield to protect myself from the vulnerability of true intimacy? And if so, what more beautiful testament to your authenticity than the courage to let yourself be truly seen? To guide you forward, here are a couple of reflection questions to ponder. When in my life do I feel the most in tune with my authentic self? And am I willing to share that version of me with at least one other person? If I fear my independence disappearing in relationships, is that fear really about the relationship, or about unresolved past experiences that made me believe closeness equals loss? Before we sign off, I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments. Has your journey of self-discovery ever collided with your relationships in ways you didn't expect? Do you have strategies or experiences that helped bridge the gap between solitude and closeness? When you comment, you're not just sharing your story. You're contributing to a growing community of individuals committed to meaningful self-growth and authentic connection. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to do so. In this space, we're constantly exploring transformative psychological insights, diving into Jung's timeless wisdom, and offering tools that help you navigate the complexities of both your inner life and your relationships. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive, and consider liking this video if you found any moments that resonated with you. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of how your drive for individuation can sometimes nudge intimacy to the sidelines, and how you can keep them both thriving in tandem. May you continue to nurture the garden of your true self while welcoming those who seek to share its beauty, and may you steer your boat on open waters with a companion who respects your direction even as they join in your discovery. After all, there's a special kind of magic that happens when two people, each walking the path of individuation, choose to share their unfolding journeys. That magic is where growth and intimacy meet, a shimmering place where we evolve not alone, but together. Now, let's wrap this up with a final affirmation of possibility. Your need for self-discovery does not need to stand in the way of emotional closeness. In fact, it can be the very thing that makes those bonds richer, deeper, and more genuine. Here, to celebrating both your independence and your capacity for love, two forces that can support, rather than sabotage, one another. Take care, keep delving into the depths of your psyche, and remember, true individuation is a dance of both solitude and shared connection. We're all in this together, learning step by step, note by note, how to be fully ourselves while also loving and being loved in return.